Hello and welcome to Ask the Expert Anything, our special segment of the Ringer Plus show where our viewers and our readers ask our financial experts anything, right? For this episode, we have Han. How are you doing, Han?
Hi, Pang. Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Okay, so we're reaching the end of the year. At during this time, I think a lot of people are doing a lot of stock taking of their performance, how they've done this year, financially, right? When it comes to their financial health, and this is also obviously the time when people start making financial resolutions for the new year, and kind of forge their path into financial freedom. And since we're on the topic, Han, like what does financial freedom mean to you as an individual?
Yeah, no, that's it's a good time. You're right. I think firstly, if you're thinking about what to make as your resolution for next year and beyond, you know, make sure you make it, taking the first step towards financial freedom. And what do I mean? My view of financial freedom is simple, right? Which is, can you have your money pay you rather than you work to pay you? Right. So, we all work, right? We all work, we earn a salary, we earn an income to support our lifestyles, right? Can your money and wealth do that instead, right? Such that, you are then free to do whatever you want. It could be continuing to work and earn money, but it could be not either, right? It could be do what you like to do, what makes you fulfilled in life, be truly free. And I think free financially is one of the kind of key tenets of a true freedom, right? To do what you want with your time, right? Rather than having to trade your time for salary or income,
Nice.
right? So that's
Nice.
what it means to me. And the point where your money or wealth gets to that point, right, where it can pay you, that's financial freedom to me. How about you,
Nice.
Pang? You agree with that?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is your definition is super deep actually. Like I think a lot of people, for people like me as well, like we look at financial freedom from a more um, simplistic perspective, right? Where we don't actually have to worry about money matters or any kind of issues, or if there are emergencies, unexpected emergencies that happen, we actually have the means to cover for it. Uh, from on a day-to-day basis, right? So that to me, that's a super simple perspective on financial freedom. uh, and I think like now as we're getting a little bit older as well, for me as well, we start thinking a lot more about how to get our money uh, uh, to kind of be able to provide for you, in when we're retired, or some people do want to retire super early as well, so that's for them, it's like a super accelerated kind of process. But yeah, no, I mean, we have a lot of questions, and this is one of the most popular topics as well, right? And I mean, you guys have a lot of clients with Ringo Plus Financial Planner, and I know that one of the top questions was really like, how do they kind of take their first steps into achieving their own version of financial freedom, right? So we have some questions here that we've selected. So we'll just go right into it, right, Han? The first question is, this guy says that he wants to retire early. So what are the things that he must consider? What are the things that I must consider to achieve this goal?
Really, really key question, right? Key building block questions. I think
Yeah.
uh, really it's actually quite simple. Financial freedom is a very simple thing. All you need is to follow, a four-step process, or to figure out four things, right? The first thing is to see where you are today, right? Do you have actually enough wealth to then, if you kind of invest it in a safe place, right, to deliver you returns? Can that return deliver you what you're actually earning today, or can support your lifestyle today and for the next, a few years, or the next however many years that you need, right? If that is true, then you are in theory financially free, right? You can actually do what you want to do with your time because your wealth can can support whatever you need to spend on, right? So that's kind of the first thing to do, which is to figure out where you are, right? Then the next few steps is, hey, like if you're not there yet, but you want to get there, right? The first building block to achieving financial freedom is to have a financial surplus each month, right? So what I mean by that, make sure you have income that exceeds your expenses, or incoming money exceeding your outgoing money, because that kind of surplus is the fuel to that journey to get to financial freedom, right? You're on a vehicle to financial freedom. A monthly surplus is the fuel to get there, right? Without that,
Right.
you're basically running on empty. You can almost never get there. Think of it as fueling your car towards freedom, right? And monthly surplus is a key consideration to make sure you get that right. Then the next question, when people say, okay, I got that, Han, what do I do now? How do I get financial freedom? A couple more steps, right? The next step is to make sure that with that surplus, you're building a resilience against crises, right? And this is where things like emergency funds come in, right? Don't just start investing and hope to achieve financial freedom. You've got to cover your bases first. And one of the key bases to cover is to have an emergency fund. And it's not just, something that's nice and safe, right? It's something that allows you to not have to touch your portfolio, your investment portfolio later. If something goes wrong in your life, some emergency happens, you lose your job, large medical bill or large car repair, right? Derails your portfolio, you have to sell it at a bad time. That's what an emergency fund is for, to avoid selling your portfolio at the wrong time, right?
Nice.
Then after that, you've covered kind of that resiliency in the short term. You want to cover long-term resiliency as well, meaning long-term protection against bad things happening, right? There's no point in building a portfolio towards financial freedom. A few years down the line, you get hit with a not so nice critical illness or disease, or you meet an accident, right? Which that's exactly what you want to kind of build resiliency against, right? And the best way to do that is through insurance. Just make sure you're well insured, adequate protection against kind of bad things happening in the longer term, right? Now, once you've got the kind of 1, 2, 3 surplus, emergency fund, insurance sorted, the last and final thing towards financial freedom is to invest, right? Investing well accelerates. You can get that through saving, but investment accelerates your journey towards financial freedom by building wealth faster and getting to that end point where you have enough wealth to then fund your lifestyle. And I think that's kind of 3 or 4 steps to financial freedom that you need to consider.
Yeah. That's super important. I think like a lot of people focus on the fourth part, the investment part. Like not many people seem to see that first 3 steps that are the foundation for you to kind of move to that last bit, right? Cool. That's super important. I think whoever is watching this will see a lot of value in that question. So we go to the next one, right? We talk about financial freedom. There's so many people who talk about it online. But for you, what is the biggest myth about financial freedom that people actually still believe today?
Yeah. I think people believe that you need to take crazy risks in investing to achieve it, and if you don't do that, you can never achieve it. And I don't think that's true, right? I think surprisingly, what the simplest thing is true, right, with financial freedom, which is the number one metric that determines whether you're going to get financial freedom or you can get there within a certain time is your savings rate, right? Nothing else actually matters, right? Meaning, if you don't invest that well, but you have a very, very high savings rate of your income, you actually will achieve financial freedom quicker than somebody who has a very low savings rate but invests well in their mind, right?
Right.
The actual difference between a high return investment versus a low one is not as big as a high savings rate versus a low savings rate. So what do I mean? Saving 50%, 60%, 70% of your income actually means more to financial freedom than trying to get kind of 8, 9, 10% on your very small savings versus 4, 5, or 6% a year on a very large savings amount. Because that's what the one part of that is that you save more, yes. But the second part of that actually is that if your saving rate is high, that means your expenses rate is low, right? So the amount that you need to feel free is actually quite low, which means you actually get there a lot quicker, right? Than if you aren't saving a lot, right, and trying to invest your way out of a low savings rate, but your expenses are still quite high by definition, right? Because savings rate is low, right? So one myth that you need to invest in high risk, high return things to achieve financial freedom. Actually, the bigger determinant is what is your savings rate.
Nice.
And that's the biggest myth buster I have for everyone here today.
Yeah, no, that's a super interesting perspective, honestly. That's a lot of people don't see that. Okay, let's go to the next question. So it's kind of related again. What's the right mentality to have if I want to be financially free?
If you ask me, the number one mentality is long-term discipline. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 mentality, right?
Yeah.
Long-term, why? Because financial freedom, for those of us who don't have a huge amount of wealth to start off with, it's not going to happen overnight, right? You need to think long-term and build that wealth to sustain your expenses, right? And that takes time, right? How much time? Could be years, could be a couple of decades, right? It could be a very long time. But I can promise you, like, you stick stick to it, you will get there, right? And if you have that mentality, you will get there, long-term mentality. And the discipline part is about maintaining that consistency. Remember the building blocks, build a monthly surplus, keep emergency funds, make sure your protection in terms of insurance is sufficient for you, right? Stay disciplined to those three tenets, right? While you're investing, right? And you will be covered in the long term also, right? In terms of having a good surplus and being protected short and long term, right? And stay disciplined. For me, that's kind of a two-in-one mentality, long-term discipline.
Nice, nice. That's something to keep in mind for everyone. We'll go on to the next question. This is something that I think a lot of people will kind of relate to. Can I still enjoy the present while saving for retirement if I am a middle income earner?
Yeah, absolutely. I see no reason why not. I think, long story short here is that if you see your enjoyment tied towards spending things, then it's going to get very difficult, right? Because there's no end to enjoyment then, because you can spend as much. The more you
Yeah,
spend, the more enjoyment you get, right? I think that's kind of just on the you're on that spectrum of enjoyment to spending, right? Now everybody needs to spend on necessities, right? And then it's about determining what is a true necessity and what is a true enjoyment thing. That's fine, right? But as long as you cover all your necessities, right? Figure out how you can be happy, right? Both with spending things, but also without having to spend things, right? And I think it's not one or the other. It's try to have both, right? And feel free to maximize your enjoyment on things that you don't have to spend things on, right? And then focus on making sure you cover the necessities of tomorrow before you cover the enjoyment of today. Right? I think that's kind of once you do that, you feel free to enjoy as much as you want, spend as much as you want. Right? Just cover the necessities of tomorrow, right? Before you cover the enjoyment of today. That's what I would
nice.
say.
Wise words from Han. As always, let's go for the next question. What sort of investments are suitable for first jobbers? That's interesting.
Really good question. Pertinent, especially for lots of people trying to join the workforce or coming back to the workforce
Hmm.
with not yet built enough wealth over the last couple of years, right? I think the first kind of investment that I would look for, right, is actually investing in your emergency fund first, right? Now, a lot of people assume emergency funds are just savings account. You put some money there, or you in a kind of real piggy bank, physical piggy bank. But that's not really needed, right? Like if you're a first jobber, you're likely not to have any wealth, right? If you do, then you probably can think about a very diversified investment. But if you're a first jobber, you haven't yet built any wealth. The first wealth you need to build actually is your emergency fund. 6 months of salary worth, that's quite sizable, right, for a first
Yeah.
jobber. I think to save up 6 months of salary worth of something, don't have to invest it. Sorry, don't have to save it into a bank account. You can actually invest it, right? Follow the three principles of investing, right? With your emergency fund, which is low risk, liquid, and can it beat inflation? And there are a few investments that are suitable for that, right? Examples: investments in bonds, investments in money market funds, investments in kind of very safe government, I don't want to say guaranteed, but government backed investment plans such as Amanah Saham,
Mm.
and stick to that until you build up your first 6 months of emergency funds. Then after that, right, you can start thinking of more risk, right? Because if you're a first jobber, you're likely to be young, and you can actually afford to take quite a lot more risk, and invest a large part, 70-80% of your surplus into higher risk investments, so equities, properties, and even a little bit in cryptocurrencies, and alternative investments such as that. A little bit in that's also fine, right? As a first jobber, you're young, you've got time to take risk. Go ahead and take some risk after you sorted out your emergency fund, which you can invest in things, not just save.
Right. Very important first step, right? Cool. So the next question is, can you invest without spending too much time doing it? That's always a problem for people who are working full time.
Yeah, no, you know what, like Fang, that's a very good question too, because as a financial planner, right, we get this all the time, which is, hey, dear financial planner Han, I know a bit about investing, but I want to do it right, and I don't have the time because I actually have a full time job, right? Isn't it
Yeah.
your job to invest for me? I have full time job doing accounting, or I'm a editor, or I'm a video producer, or I'm a graphic designer, whatever it may be, and that's totally fair, right? Like we all have our full time jobs. right? And I think one of the key ways to invest and invest well towards financial freedom, without having to do it yourself and spend too much time, not more than kind of 20 minutes, half an hour a week, is to speak to a licensed financial planner to make sure it's set up for you nicely, right? Get a solid financial plan. Doesn't have to be very heavily managed, hours a day, many hours a week, managing it, right? You can just set it up, make sure it's set up well with a financial planner, right? And then just spend literally half an hour a month, when you get your salary, design your surplus, and start putting money in. That's all you need, half an hour a month, and you will be investing better than 95% of investors out there, as long as you have a decent financial plan, which includes a good investment plan. So I think, for me, that's the easy way to do it. You have a life, you don't have to spend hours and hours learning about investments too much,
Right.
as long as you have an expert guiding you along the way.
Yeah, and this kind of person will also be able to kind of help you put you on the right track, right? So some people do like to do their own investment styles, and having a financial planner to kind of consult or throw ideas around, that's also pretty useful, isn't it?
Yeah, no. If you want to spend more time, certainly feel free to do that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you can use your financial planner as kind of a sounding board, right? But if you don't want to spend literally any time, you spend the minimum amount of time, then you can really just rely on someone who is really licensed and obviously certified to
right.
then make sure they construct something for you which you can easily manage without spending too much time on it. I think that's the key. It's still
Nice.
yours, it's still your
Yeah,
decisions, your actions, but at least you can feel very confident that you're doing the right thing for your financial freedom and
awesome.
financial future.
Cool. Okay, we've reached the last question for this episode. Some people will relate to this. I've been badly burnt before, and therefore I'm very afraid to invest. What should I do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've heard so many stories of people who've been there, got a hot stock tip, or chasing a very large kind of cryptocurrency returns, and basically lost a lot or all of their money,
Yeah.
and just want to give up on investing, right? And I think for me, it's a little bit difficult, but I have to do this kind of rehab work a lot with clients, right? And say, hey, look, actually, investing is the right thing for you to do in the long term, but you've got to look at two things. One, what is your risk appetite, right? And make sure you've built something which is resilient towards any kind of these kind of things happening. Market up or down doesn't matter. Stocks going bankrupt doesn't matter. Cryptocurrency is kind of rug pulling. You've lost all your money. If you've invested in that one thing
Yeah.
alone, it actually doesn't affect you that much because you're well diversified regardless of what risk appetite you're on. So that's kind of two parts, right? One is identify the right investments for your risk appetite. If you've been badly burned before, trust in the process, right? Trust in a licensed person, not just anybody telling you anything, right? They will get you to your financial outcome, right? And for not very expensive, right? We can do it online for mere hundreds of ringgits, which is going to be a lot more palatable than losing thousands or hundreds, tens of thousands into kind of bad stock tips and chasing FOMO returns on cryptocurrencies, that kind of thing, right? Get proper advice. You can still do all those things, still get exposure to all the things that everybody's talking about, but do it in a safe, diversified way that is geared towards your financial freedom goal, right? I think that's what we all want, surely.
Nice, nice. That's I mean, very important perspective to have whenever it comes to kind of, especially with money and returns, right, over time. So thank you so much, Han. I think that's all the questions that we have for this episode. Always nice talking to you. And if you guys want to know more and want to hear more about Han's very interesting perspectives when it comes to financial freedom, there's Ringgit Plus Financial Planner, our one-to-one financial planning service to get all the expertise and guidance that you need, whether you're a seasoned investor or someone who's just starting out. Ringer Plus Advance, Ringer Plus Financial Planner. Just do check out the QR code just to check out what else and what other benefits that you can get from this service. So that's the end of the episode, and I'll catch you, Han, and I think next year.
See you the next one.
All right, all right. Thank you very much, everyone.